Welcome comrades, back to another Minecraft survival video. My name is Cobblestone. I don't wish to belabor the point. I have more castle construction to get done in this episode, and I'm standing here with my newfound friend, both of us at once contemplating the effort that lays ahead and the uncertainty of it all. Yeah, I really am not going to be staying around here. I've been able to take as many blocks as I possibly can from that mine over here to get it on this side of my world, and I've already commenced in filling in the creeper hole that was left in last episode, and I'm going to continue with that, and then I'm going to make my way up there. I'm going to finish this tower. It will all be coming, certainly, I hope, like things will really begin to take shape in this episode. And by the end of it, I'm going to have a lot of the walls filled in and this centerpiece here. And then I think I have a couple other towers on the other side of the castle. But that shall all be a case for something that I will do in the time-lapse mode right now. Whoa, what a fantastic transition that was. Seamlessly executed. Yes, you could see me there going up the elevator, traveling up a couple flights of stairs, and now jumping down, and there was that really weird lag where I was suspended in the air for a moment there. I'm going through the motions, getting the second primary tower at the front of the build completed, getting it up to scratch. You could see the level of discipline and concentration that I was going through at the time when I was building this. Of course, now this is in retrospect that I'm commentating over the clip of me in time-lapse mode, finishing off the tower, getting it done, doing all of the detail. I was finding as I was coming along that perhaps I wasn't exactly nailing the shading of it. You could see the tuff, the cobblestone, the stone brick, the andesite, and the stone, how it, the gradient goes from dark to light. I think I was transitioning too quickly at the bottom from dark, and then I was kind of exhausting all of the various blocks I had access to, so there was a lot of stone at the top. There was too much stone almost. And then with the wall, of course, it was a bit different because there's almost no stone. Anyway, it's just about finding that balance, and this required quite a few blocks. I don't know how many. Please don't try and get me to produce a quote for the amount of stone that I'm used as part of this. I know that some YouTubers and some Minecraft builders, when they're like reporting and recording their builds online, it's often they get the question, or some of them just provide it up front, like how many blocks will be required so you could do this at home. Of course, this is no tutorial, so it's not like I'm directing anyone to do as I have done here with this castle, but at the very least, I have no idea how many blocks were used in the process of this, and I made quite a lot of progress by the time that I'm now recording this voiceover here, this little piece into the microphone. So looking back on this moment in retrospect, I was quite early along the way, like really this was quite a while ago now. It's interesting. Anyway, you can see things quite quickly start to come together, and you almost don't realize how much progress you make. It seems like in the moment you're just chipping away with something, block by block, or whatever it is. I guess it would apply to anything that requires a lot of effort. You know, when you're writing an essay, you're writing a couple thousand words, you're writing lines of code or something, you're trying to produce something with some sort of output, and you can make a lot of momentum and steam as you come along, and then quite quickly you stop to check your progress, almost check the wind and how quickly you've gone along with something, and you realize that you've done pretty well and you ought to be proud of yourself. And now I switch to, I think it's ×5 in the replay mode in flashback, because I realized that I couldn't be sitting here trying to give an honest account of the construction of this castle in merely the speed of reality, traveling at 1 times. So I think it's 5 times. That's kind of the healthy balance, the the happy path that I've settled with for how quickly I want to speed up these builds. And I think it has a pretty nice view from the water. I'm glad that I was able to find a place that has water, if it's not hilly enough at the very least, has water. And I think it would make sense in the context of a castle, as generally you see a lot of castles positioned on the water. I suppose it makes it difficult. If you were to attack this, then a rivaling army would be able to make their way on boats of some description, like canoes, and make their way traveling down the river there. And that's quite an effective way to move not just an army, but also the equipment that an army carries. So perhaps that may make the castle vulnerable. Though I'm coming to think that this wouldn't necessarily be like a major castle. This would be something that you'd have within a realm, and you would have larger castles, like a kingdom sort of, and they would provide more solid protection and be a greater target for enemies. And perhaps a castle of this sort could be quite easily abandoned in a time of war. So here we go with a bit more of the progress that I've made, getting this part of the build up to scratch, because I want to start filling in the insides so I have more of an idea of how the substantive builds will take place. Like the towers, of course, they serve more of an aesthetic function, but they're less practical because it's not like I'll be living in the towers, or these will be the main rooms. It'll be this sort of build, like the one that I am now standing on here, that will be more important. And if you can kind of see, I'll try and demonstrate what I have so far. This is something that I must admit that I'm not the best at. It's more difficult, I think, to kind of get these larger builds looking up to scratch. Generally, I'm always having to borrow from what I see elsewhere to think up ways to make them a bit more creative and look good. Because particularly when you're just building these giant blocks that can be quite complex quite quickly, actually, the equation becomes more difficult. I'm doing my best with what I have here, and I'm going to try and follow this wall I have scratched out indiscriminately below as best that I can to get this looking good. And it's basically going to be identical to what I have on the other side over here, so I'm going to have to do my best to remember it. Not that it's important to have it completely symmetrical, as no doubt I will not be, there's no one who's going to be scrutinizing this build and expecting that everything looks exactly in the order that it should. And that's fine. It's a risk that I'm knowingly taking. But I'll do my best. I don't know how invigorating this is to keep on camera. It's kind of like doing my best to fill in all of these blocks. There's a lot of manual work, and the creative process, I think most of the creative process will lie in the detailing. What I want to do is just get everything put into position, which is what I'm doing now. And then I can really refine what I have at the end to ensure that it looks satisfactory. I don't just want it to look satisfactory, I want it to look fantastic. But yeah, that'll be something that I do once I've placed these many, many thousands of blocks into position and I have the bulk of it completed, and then I could start the refining process. Oh boy, I almost fell off just then. And what I did here was like create this massive tower in the very center, which you might be looking at and thinking is slightly out of position, and you'd probably be correct in identifying that it's out of position. I don't really know exactly what I'm doing with it, but I'm trying my best. And that's what I'm referring to there. Just to try and like break up the monotony of having this massive spruce roof. I'm also thinking that I could incorporate another block into here, or another color scheme. But, that's something that I can begin to develop as I go along. Actually, I can push this one out more. And I'm going to continue in the time-lapse mode. I had this idea in constructing this building here, and hereforth I shall be referring to this build as the hall. It's going to be a very impressive hall. It's going to be a banquet hall. It's going to be a hall of gathering. It's going to provide the substance of this entire castle, and it's going to be a space for people who are within the castle to inhabit the most pleasing room, whereas like the exterior itself and the peripheral parts of the castle are going to be providing that sense of defense and barricading from the lands beyond. But yeah, in terms of this hall, I have this strong idea of having it as large living space, and it's going to be quite sumptuous. It's going to be a long table that is characteristic of many medieval builds. You have to have a long table. Everybody knows this. And there has to be food on the table, because if you're feeding wealthy nobles, what they expect is food, and sumptuous feasts, banquets, consistently, perhaps when you have visitors, but even when you don't have visitors, there is an expectation that the servants shall provide, and that's what I intend to do with this hall. But I also want to have a library and a couple of other things. Then at the same time, one of the more pervading ideas that underpinned much of this was I wanted there to be a lot of empty space, which is a weird thing to think about. But when you have the image in your head of what a medieval castle is, you'll see many of them, and this is perhaps characterized and conveyed in a lot of literature and film, more so like film and television more than anything, of these great big castles with a lot of empty space in them. And they seem to kind of travel on and on and on, and they're very large. And within it, it gives it this sort of like cold atmosphere. And I really like the ambience of that, which is one of the things I was trying to tease out in the construction of this castle. We'll see how well I'm able to do it, of course, once I get to the interior stage of its development. And that'll be something that I can consider then, rather than trying to like supplant it in my mind. Of course, you need to build it at scale, and I don't necessarily know if I've done it sufficiently at scale to get it to that point. You can see my horse there wandering around, trying to find a way to escape from the castle, but of course, it can't do so without sustaining a bit of damage. Anywho, that is something that I had in my mind, and I'll perhaps put a bookmark in it and return to it later. Most of my builds typically tend to be quite cozy, as I'm not someone who's like very well confident in building very large builds that have that sort of scale required to create something that is cozy. Many of my settings and atmospheres are quite intimate, and things are kind of built on top of each other, particularly for interiors, and you always underestimate just how much room you'll have for an interior. This is something that I have found, is that you can quite quickly eat up the internal room for any given build, as if you don't plan it correctly. And this was perhaps one of the worst transitions that I produced so far. I probably should have cut this bit out, but you can see me, there we go, we're back to business. With digging out that wall, I now realize that I no longer need this wall, and I'll be able to cover it up from the outside, and it's certainly not visible from the floor. And we're kind of approaching the end of it here. A bit more detail on the front. There's going to be a lot of detail required for this, and I haven't quite worked that out, but I hope I will. We are once again back from the time lapse and into more live gameplay, and I've also added a few more towers and filled in the roof a bit more since last time we were on camera, but seemingly I'm hitting a bit of a wall as to what to do. The more vacant areas of the build, as I'm now inputting the roof. I'm beginning to fill in the insides and fill out the larger structures within the castle itself, but it is coming up, I won't say and deny, with its challenges, because I'm now wondering where next to go. I think what I'm just going to do is continue to fill this in as normal, and I'm going to have to go back and collect some of my remaining stone because I'm getting quite low in terms of the amount that I have out here. I've also been visited, I've been graced by the presence of a wandering trader who has quite similar trades as to the previous trader who came out here, but nothing that really jumps out as so important. Tall, dry grass actually don't have any of that, though I think there's an easier way to get it rather than spending 1 emerald. I want to try and maintain as many emeralds as I can for when I eventually find a villager who has a mending book on offer, which is something I actually determined today. Oh, and there's my horse, of course. My horse is doing its absolute utmost to try and escape from me. This horse, for whatever reason, just spends every waking second plotting about how it can get away from having to be in my custody. And, well, whoops, I did not mean to do that. Actually, the horse didn't lose any damage, just me. That's weird. I lost 7 hearts. 3 hearts. It was down to 7 hearts, and the horse lost not even half a heart. Seems to be an unfair trade deal, but one that I deserve because I caused us to both fall. Anyway, yeah, this horse hates me. I don't know why. No, that always happens. This horse despises me. It has some sort of sickness, aversion to living with me, even though I give it a fantastic life and only occasionally accidentally hit it. It really has nothing to complain about. I'm just nervous if I leave it there that it's going to run away. Actually, I can check this chest because it should have more stuff, and I can't even bring it all back. Well, I'm not very clever, am I? I shouldn't have brought this all with me. Yeah, and if it's not doing that, then it's like wigging out by spinning in a circle. I've seen it spin in a circle that many times before. Okay, that was gravel I grabbed. But, it might come in handy. There might be one part of the build that I want to use gravel. It kind of does look like a stone block, especially from afar. So perhaps I won't discredit the block altogether. And I'm kind of getting desperate. I'll have to do another expedition to gather stone again, even though it seems like I only recently had to gather stone. I need to think up a way that I can have a more permanent quarry. How is he missing him? He's trying to spit on it, but he's missing, like, from point blank range. Okay, he didn't miss the other one. I'm not going to let these alpacas die. These alpacas are going to be protected by my sword and my life. Well, an inordinate amount of time has passed since I last recorded progress of this build. I really couldn't tell you how long it's been since I last hit record, and since I've been obviously making progress along the lines of filling out the interior. This room has not gotten to the point, of course, quite evidently, where it's complete, but for the most part, the structure of it is in place. I just have to work out a few things as to whether I'm going to be introducing new floors, as we seem to have these windows aimlessly floating at the top of the room, but they don't seem to connect to any flooring or system by which you could look out at the expanse beyond. And I now have a chicken friend inside as well, who, for whatever reason, seems to be hanging around on this side. I think there's another chicken actually outside. I was hearing it earlier. It must be somewhere around here. Oh, yeah, there it is. I knew it was in here somewhere. Maybe I'll just do this for the moment. So, actually, no, I don't want mobs to come in. I'm going to block that up. Yeah, we got friends in here now, which is very cool. Okay, I'm going to leave that spruce block there for the moment. Chickens. I've kind of been able, for the most part, I love these little, these nooks almost, these staircases that you'll be able to find throughout the castle, that one can walk inside and then find themselves making their way through a labyrinth of various little rooms, peppered throughout. I haven't completed it entirely. I intend to have right around the peripheral part of these walls, make it connect up so one can walk right the way around uninterrupted, more or less. And obviously, there's a bit of lack of connection here on this side, but that will be something as we move along. This is the front of it. It's difficult to see. Maybe I'll go into this mode here, the free cam mode, and you can begin to get a better idea of what the castle looks like. Of course, it's not done the detailing. I'm going to be sounding like a bit of a broken record, constantly reiterating the point that it's not done. It probably won't be for an episode or two that it is, but the progress so far has been satisfactory. If I had to report to a superior on what is happening here, I suppose you, dear viewer, could be that superior, then I would be reporting progress being made along the lines of a satisfactory degree. Bits like this are a bit ugly and it doesn't really make sense, and I haven't entirely clarified in my mind what I want it to look like. Then you can come around through here, or there's a staircase up here, a room. A lot of the rooms are just empty and seem to have no significance or meaning. And the point isn't lost on me either that I actually haven't finished, but it's almost as though I'm giving a tour. It's a bit unfortunate, as I'll be giving multiple tours throughout the development of this castle, each of its various phases. But this is more of a site visit. I don't have my hard hat on at the moment. All I have is this chest plate, as all the other armor pieces have now broken. But if I had my hard hat on, it'll be a site visit, akin to a sort of piece of construction. And the gravel made its way into the castle somehow or another. I don't know how, but it did. Yeah, all these little rooms here, I can destroy that now. Is there any way I can get it? Okay, yeah, I can get into it from the top. Each of the staircases, actually there is no staircase here, but many of the towers have staircases in them. That one doesn't. I'm not sure why. And then we once again return to where the chickens were from earlier. Whatever reason, they just love this corner. That's where they've been hanging out this entire time. Actually, he's broken with that tradition. He's walked over there. He's no longer interested in being over here. Why did I do that? By putting the dirt in the side of the wall. It just made it look hideously ugly. So, actually, I might put the dirt down and put you back. Yeah, I think I'm going to continue with the interior. I'm going to be using the time-lapse mod for that. I also haven't decided exactly what flooring I want, whether I want to introduce a pattern or one singular block, whether it'll be stone, whether it'll be wood. I think wood, because that'll break with the very, well, maybe it'll be a variety of things. But if I do have a lot of wood, then it'll break with how much grey there is, or at least maybe I can find a way to texture the floor in a manner that's a bit better. There's a hearth here, which I really like. Yeah, I'm trying to find ways to make it look like it's structured and detailed, and it's not just like these empty walls like these bits here that doesn't really look as aesthetic as it could. So introduce some different principles. And I love having these pillars, these sort of columns that look as though they're supporting the structure itself, because I imagine if this is to be an old castle and it's believable, then you wouldn't expect a room like this to just be floating. So I'll have to find ways to either introduce support beams up there, or like this, find a way to have it supported by stone. You'll also see I've introduced or installed a few mods. Where's my zoom? There's my zoom. Cool. Including the rain, and there's now fog on the ground. They're not really significant mods that dramatically change the game, but I think they're meant to be cosmetic uplifts, and it seems to be pretty cool. I really like this new rain texture. As before, it was a bit dense. It was overly thick in my mind, and it was also coming down at an angle perpendicular to the ground, whereas this has a bit of an angle to it, and introduces a new dynamic, as though the wind is taking the rain and blowing it in certain directions. There are also the clouds that look different as well. One thing that I want to do, and I haven't yet started or thought about what the design will be, is a banner. And I should hang them proudly. Oh, actually, I haven't put the dark oak highlights along that tower roof, which I shall do. I'm only now noticing. You can see that it's quite obvious actually from this angle. Do all the others have it? Yeah, they do. All the others have it, just except for this one here, the front, which I'm not sure how I missed that. Yeah, I want a banner, and I'm going to be hanging it here and just around the castle, but I don't know what color it will be and what exactly it will look like. I'm sure it will be beautiful, whatever I decide upon, and if not, then chastise me, audience. I grant you such uh, rights to do so. It's your entitlement to critique anything that I do as a viewer. I'm going to kill a couple of these mobs because I do not want them potentially invading the castle. Oh, that skeleton died in one hit. This looks like some dangerous fog, almost like just hanging over the horizon. If I walk into it, it'll deal damage to me. Something like you'd find in the nether, but it's not. Anywho, that is neither here nor there. This has been quite an intensive video. A lot of building has been accomplished, but more building remains. I'm going to make my way to the confines of this safe, secure castle that could be more secure soon. And thank you for watching. I shall hopefully see you in the next one. Have a good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. Goodbye. Thank you, good evening, and good night.